Welcome to all of you. Our today talk is on sampling in research, especially in social sciences research. Introduction. Sampling. What is sampling? The sampling is the process of drawing a number of individual cases from a larger population. Sampling is a way to learn about a large population by obtaining information from a subset of a larger population. Example. Presidential polls are based upon samples of the population that might vote in election. As you know, in Pakistan, during presidential poll, only the members of the national and provincial assemblies are participate in voting process. Basically, these are the samples which are taken from the larger population. Why sample? Basically, the sample is to learn about something from a large group without having to study every member of that group. Time and cost issue basically. Studying every single instance of a thing is impractical and too expensive. For example, census. During census process, we need to collect data from each and every member of the society, and this process is very time consuming process, and we also need on that process a huge amount of cost and financial resources. Basically, we use a sample because to improve data quality, obtain in-depth information about each subject rather than superficial data on all. Population. As you know, we select sample from population. The population, the group of elements from which a researcher samples and to which she or he might like to generalize. Sample. A number of individual cases drawn from a larger population. So basically this is the subset of population. Generalizability. The ability to apply the results of a study to groups or situations beyond those actually studied. A probability sample tends to be more generalizable because it increases the chance that samples are representative of the population from which they are drawn. Biased samples. A sample that is not representative from the population which it is drawn. Probability samples are less likely to be biased sample. So non-probability sample is more likely to be biased sample. Sampling frames. Probability versus non-probability sampling. Basically, these two are the major frames of the samplings. Non-probability sampling, a sample that has been drawn in a way that does not give every member of population a known chance of being selected. And next one is probability sampling. A sample drawn in a way to give every member of the population a known chance of inclusion. when every member of the population have equal chance to be selected in sample. So this will be a process. This process will be a probability sampling process. Probability samples are usually more representative than non-probability samples of the population from which they are drawn. Types of probability samplings. These are the major types of probability sampling. Some simple random sampling, systematic random sampling, stratified sampling, cluster sampling, and multi-stage sampling. The first is simple random sampling, a probability sample in which every member of a study population has been given an equal chance of selection. One way to draw a simple random sample is to put all possibilities on paper, cut them up, and then draw a sample from a hat. Research randomizer. We can also see on this link how we can select some sample as random sampling through random sampling process. Simple random sampling, distribution. The distribution of sample statistics, a visual display of the sample. So these are the basically some process of the selection through simple random sampling. Next is a systematic sampling, a probability sampling procedure that involves selection every kth number element from a list of population elements. After the first element has been randomly selected, then every kth number is selected in sample. Example, divide the total number of element by number you want to in your sample. If you are looking to sample 4 out of 24, so then from first 4 we select through random, and then every sixth number will be selected. Randomly selected a number between 1 to 4, and then select every fourth element from the number. If you are looking to select 6 number out of 24, so then every first to fourth we select randomly, then every fourth number will be the sample. Systematic sampling. Selection interval, the distance between the elements selected in a sample. Selection interval equal to population size. So this will be the sample size. The next is stratified sampling, a probability sampling procedure that involves dividing the population in groups and strata defined by presence of certain characteristics, and then randomly select sample from each stratum. Examples, if you had a population that was 10% women and you want to sample that is also 10% women. Stratified sampling. Further steps to draw a stratified random sample: group the study population into strata or into groups that share a given characteristics. Enumerate each group separately. Randomly sample within each strata. If there are 5 groups, so when we use stratified sampling, we select sample from each groups. according to our required sample size. Next is cluster sampling. A probability sampling procedure that involves randomly selection cluster of element from a population and subsequently select every element in each selected cluster for inclusion in the sample. Cluster sampling is an option if data collection involves visits to sites that are far apart. Examples of cluster sampling. You are conducting a study of Kentucky high school students, a name of a school basically. You could obtain a list of all high school students in the state and complete random sampling. A cluster sample would be more practical. Obtain a list of all high schools in Kentucky. A random sample the high schools from the list. Obtain a list of students from each high school. Select and then contact each of those students. So in cluster sampling, we select a whole group. If there are 5 groups, then we randomly select one group, and every member of that group will be the sample of study. And in stratified sampling, we select or proportionate or specify or a required sample from each group of the population. Next is multi-stage sampling, a probability sampling procedure that involves several stages such as randomly selecting cluster from a population, then randomly selected element from each of the cluster. Example of multi-stage sampling. Random digit dialing is the procedure we select through their mobile phone number. The stages are: first, areas code randomly sampled. Stage 2, 3 digit local exchanges randomly sampled. Stage 3, last 4 digit randomly sampled. Stage 4, ask the person who answered the phone for the appropriate person you want to interview. Next are the types of non-probability sampling. These are some major types of non-probability sampling. One is purposive sampling, quota sampling, snowball sampling, and convenience sampling. First is purposive sampling, a non-probability sampling procedure that involves selecting element based on researcher judgment about which element will facilitate his or her investigation. Next is quota sampling, a non-probability sampling procedure that involves describing the target population in terms of what are thought to be relevant criteria and then selecting sample element to represent the relevant subgroups in proportion to their presence in the target population. Next is snowball sampling, a non-probability sampling procedure that involves using members of groups of interest to identify other member of the group. Next one is convenience sampling, a non-probability sampling procedure that involves selecting elements that are readily accessible to the researcher, sometimes called an available subject sample. Basically, this is about. The last is a summary of this presentation. We sample because studying every element in our population is frequently beyond our means and would jeopardize the quality of our study results. On the other hand, we don't need to sample when studying every member of our population. is feasible if the population is small. So that in that situation we don't need to use sample or sampling procedures. So thank you very much for your time and attention.